Hi, thanks for joining me. I want to talk about a question just briefly regarding the likely uh, period of time when the visions in the book of Revelation are or have been fulfilled. And so the question specifically that I want to address is the book of Revelation mostly about things in our future? To help us address that question and to think about it, I'm going to be looking at and I'll be discussing Revelation 22:6 and Daniel 8:26. Before I discuss those things, I want to talk about the preterist and futurist systems of interpretation and one other matter. Now, there are generally known to be four different ways of interpreting the book of Revelation. For this video, we're going to be talking about the futurist and the preterist systems. I'm not going to be talking about the idealist system because the question I'm asking and the way I am approaching the question, more particularly, is not addressed by them at all. In fact, the question makes no sense in their system. As far as a historicist system, there are, even though that is the historically the Protestant view, today it's held by very, very few people. And so we have these two futurist and preterist systems of interpretation. Now, a futurist is somebody who believes that, for the most part, the visions in the book of Revelation are in our future. Futurist system, our future. Preterist systems of interpretation believe that, for the most part, the visions in the book of Revelation are in our past. Sometimes people are confused about a preterist interpretation, and they believe that by somebody saying that they hold a preterist interpretation, that what they're saying is that they believe that Jesus returned in his second coming sometime in our past, or that the final judgment happened in the past, or that we are actually living in the final state of the new heavens and new earth right now. There are no Orthodox preterists that believe that. That is a heretical view. And so to get to what we're talking about in this video, as far as futurist and preterist systems, I want to make a distinction between consummation and non-consummation visions. And this distinction is used by many commentators that I have read and am familiar with, and it's affirmed, I believe, by all of the systems. So a consummation vision would be a vision that is about the final consummation of all things. And so that would include the second coming of our Lord, the resurrection of the dead, the general judgment, the consigning to hell and the welcoming into heaven, the new heavens and the new earth, the new Jerusalem descending, God dwelling with his people forever. Those are consummation events. There are visions that deal with that. Everybody, preterists included, believe that those events are in our future. So when I ask the question, does the system, do people, or are the visions in the book of Revelation mostly still in our future? I'm not talking about consummation visions. Everybody believes those are. What I'm talking about are non-consummation visions, and that would be visions like the rise of the beast and things like that, that happen prior to those consummation events of the second coming, the raising of the dead, the judgment, and the new heavens and the new earth, and the God dwelling with his people forever. So with that distinction in mind, let me just go ahead and talk about Daniel 8 and Revelation 22. We'll start on this with Revelation 22, which is right here. The angel said to John, and he said to me, he being the angel, do not seal up the words of the prophecy of this book, for the time is near. Whatever you think near is, it's not really, I mean, that's part of the question that I'm asking. The time is near. The angel says to John, do not seal up the words of the prophecy of this book, for the time is near. Now, to help us interpret this or understand this, God has graciously arranged that this verse in Revelation 22, verse 10 here, is actually an echo of and recalls to mind Daniel 8:26. And I have B there for specifically the second part of the verse, but I'm going to read the whole verse. I have the whole verse on the screen. The vision of the evenings and the mornings that has been told is true. Now here's the part that you'll recognize. But seal up the vision, for it refers to many days from now. So you can see, seal up the vision, it refers to many days. And John is told, don't seal up the vision because the time is near. So we're talking about the time of fulfillment of those visions. So what is Daniel 8 about? Daniel 8 is about it's the vision of, you might know it as the vision of the goat and the ram, or the ram and the he goat, the male goat. It's referred to here in Daniel 8:26 as the vision of the evenings and the mornings. And this refers to 2,300 evening and morning sacrifices that were going to be stopped, or that the sacrifices would be stopped for this period of time, 2,300, and that 2,300 evenings and mornings, whether that's 2,300 days or half that number, because there was a sacrifice in the morning and the evening, is basically debated. But the sacrifices would be stopped for a period of time is the point here. It would be a horrific time in the future of Daniel's audience. Now, the timeline for Daniel 8 is this. Daniel receives the vision in Babylon in 550 BC. This is the third year of the king of Babylon, Belshazzar. He's actually the second in command, king of Babylon. And Daniel receives the vision, as I said, in 550, and you can see that in Daniel 8:1. Now, the vision concerns the last item on the list here, Antiochus IV, or Antiochus Epiphanes. He is given control of the sanctuary and the people, and this is a vision about the Jewish people, and Antiochus is given control over the sanctuary, the temple, which had been rebuilt by this time, and the people. And Antiochus desecrates the temple by sacrificing a pig on the altar, and he puts an end to the daily and evening sacrifices for a period of time. Antiochus ends up dying in 164, so for about 6 years he does that. Now, this is what the vision, Daniel 8, the final thing. But on the way to getting to the final thing, these other things are mentioned. Media-Persia comes to power and becomes a world-dominating power in relation to the Jewish people. Now, the Jewish people are in Babylon at this time, but in 538, Media-Persia defeats Babylon. You can read about that in Daniel 5. In 538, Media-Persia defeats Babylon, and then later on, Media-Persia itself is conquered by Greece. This is now 331, and then in 323, Alexander the Great, his kingdom is divided into four. The prophecy speaks about this, divided into four parts and given to his four generals upon Alexander's death. And then from one of those generals, in one of those Grecian kingdoms, Antiochus IV comes to power in about 170, and he's in power until his death. So this is the timeline of Daniel 8. And what this means is that the many days in Daniel 8:26, you'll remember it said, seal up the prophecy because it's for many days. Its fulfillment is many days away. The many days in Daniel 8:26 are these days, the days between 550 BC and the final fulfillment of 170 BC. If you wanted to talk about the beginning of fulfillment, you would have to include those other events that I listed, which were much closer in time. But in 550, as you can see on the slide, Daniel receives the vision of the trampling of the sanctuary and the host for 2,300 evenings and mornings. And you can read Daniel 8 yourself, and the vision is given and then the interpretation. And then in 170 BC, Antiochus IV gains control of the sanctuary and the people and forces sacrifices to cease for approximately 6 years, as I've said. Now that's 380 years between 550 BC, when Daniel received the vision, and the final end point of that vision, which is 170 BC. So that's 380 years, which is the many days of Daniel 8:26, which is why the vision was to be sealed up, because it's not going to be relevant for people for many days. 380 years. That's many days. So we have a summary now. So I told you this was short. So we're at the summary. Got a couple of points here. First, the events prophesied in Daniel 8 were to transpire in less than 400 years from Daniel's time. We just read that. Second, God considered 380 years to be such a long time that he instructed Daniel to seal up the vision because it had no relevance for the immediate future. That's what that means. Third, in contrast, John was commanded to not seal up the prophecy of the book of Revelation because the time was near, as we read. Here's my conclusion. In my opinion, this rather strongly indicates that the events prophesied in the book of Revelation are not in our future, being almost 2,000 years from the date of writing, but in the near and soon future of the original recipients. What do you think? Thank you for watching. May the Lord bless you.